gentlemen, welcome into KNEL TV and KNEL 95.3 KNEL FM. I'm Lynn Ferris, the owner and general manager of KNEL Radio and president of Ferris Broadcasting in Brady. Glad to have you with us tonight. Tonight, a special night here in Mason. We are in Mason at the Eckert Civic Center. Tonight it is a candidate forum, an election early voting for the March 3rd primary election begins a week from today and will run for 2 weeks prior to the March 3rd primary election. In Mason County, we have a big race because it is an open seat, an open race for county judge. The incumbent county judge, Cherie Harden, decided that she didn't want to run again. She wanted to move on to a different part of her life. So Cherie Harden is not running for re-election. We have an open seat. 2 candidates have filed, and they are Garrett Allen, who is one candidate, and the other is...
This is going to be recorded on KNEL, excuse me, and they have to start right on at 6:30, so we got to make sure we're all ready to go.
And we are ready to go, and we're up and going. Glad to have you with us this evening for this candidate forum. The 2 candidates, Garrett Allen and Shannon Worrell. And we're getting in place, the folks in place. A really good crowd on hand here in Mason tonight at the Eckert Civic Center. Big crowd for a candidate forum, a good crowd. A lot of folks here, and so we're looking forward to it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to tonight's candidate forum for Mason County candidates. I am Wanda Rufer, chairman of the Mason County Republican Party and the president of the Mason County Republican Women. Thank you. Tonight we have our 2 county judge candidates, Shannon Grody Worrell and Garrett Allen. And also answering questions tonight will be Precinct 3 County Commissioner Dave Underwood and Precinct 4 Dave Underwood, and Precinct 2 Fred Estes will be also answering questions tonight. Day Drew, Annette Thomas will be our moderator. They drew numbers to see who will go first tonight. Shannon will go first. Dave will go second. But on the second question, Dave will answer the question first and so forth. It will be round robin. They will have 3 minutes to answer the question because of time limitations. And we have our timekeepers up here who will be keeping time. And so if we can get started now, if Justice of the Peace Treg Hudson will come up and give our invocation.
Please bow your heads. Lord, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for this county and this community. And Lord, as you taught us to pray, in the Lord's Prayer, you said, holy is your name, hallowed be your name. Father, we just ask you that we would do our part to keep that real in Mason, that your name would be holy, that you would be honored, that we would honor you in all we do and in our offices. We just thank you for these candidates and elected officials. We pray that they will bring honor to you and to the community and the county. We pray for just their success and just bless them. We pray for our first responders, Lord. We ask you to protect them, S and fire and law enforcement. Father, we just help us not to take those guys for granted, those ladies. And Father, just pray protection for them. Bless us tonight. Help us to have a good meeting, and just give you all the honor and glory in Jesus' name.
Precinct 4 Chairman Bruce Lindbergh will lead us in the pledges to the Texas and American flags. Please stand.
Let's help me honor our flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
I'd like to have a few introductions, make a few introductions tonight. First, I would like to introduce the members of the Mason County Republican Executive Committee. I am the chairman. Vice chairman and Precinct 1 chairman is Brian Wright. Precinct 2 chairman is Joni Matthews. She could not be here tonight. Precinct 3 chairman is Annette Thomas. She will be our moderator tonight. Precinct 4 chairman is Bruce Lamberg. Our committee members tonight that put the questions together for the forum were myself, Annette Thomas, Brian Wright, Cindy Bowden, and Joni Matthews. You have an opportunity, if you think of a question tonight, you can go back there and write it down. We will select 2 questions to be submitted at the end of the program that Annette will ask from the public. I just want to address very quickly what happened with Allie Yonker. She submitted her resignation last Wednesday. Today, the Commissioner's Court did not accept her resignation. However, she has until 4 o'clock tomorrow to decide if she wants to withdraw her resignation or allow it to go through. If she allows her resignation to go through, the Commissioner's Court and the county judge will hire an interim county chair until the November election. The Republican Executive Committee, made up of myself, Brian Wright, Annette Thomas, Joni Matthews, and Bruce Lamberg, will select a candidate to run in the November election. The Democrats will also have an opportunity to select a candidate to run in the November election as well. And whoever wins the election in November will be the new county treasurer. With that, I'll turn everything over to Annette.
Thank you for everyone tonight. It's a good turnout for sure. First, I'd like to start recognizing some of our guests tonight. First is the Honorable Judge Rob Hoffman. Justice of the Peace, Craig Hudson. Our County District Clerk, Chelsea I did that bad, didn't I? Our County Commissioners, Precinct 2, Fred Estes. County Commissioner, Precinct 4, Dave Underwood. And then our other candidates, County Judge candidate Garrett Allen and County Judge candidate Shannon Grody Worrell. Something we did not address, yes, okay. We are going to allow each candidate 5 minutes to introduce themselves. So I guess we will start with, since we go by numbers, we'll start with Ms. Shannon Worrell. How's that?
Good evening. How are y'all? Right. First, let me extend my thanks to the Republican Party and the Republican women for allowing us to have this forum and for you guys being here. It gives me warmth and good-hearted that you guys feel the need to come out and be part of this. So many of you know me, Shannon Grody Worrell. Grew up here in Mason and have multi-generational here in Mason. My great-great-great-grandfather was the founding Methodist preacher out at Arndt. But what you may not know is that on Grandma's side, if you go out towards Doss and Lang's Mill, the Gasper family comes from that direction. Most importantly, probably, is the ones that you guys know, right? Grandma and Grandpa, Oliver and Doris Grody, and then my parents are Glenn and Pat Grody. Married to my personal Superman, James. This summer it will be 30 years. And our very, very best thing we have ever done in life is our son, Jarrett. So he's at baseball practice right now. Anyway, grew up here. Did all things FFA 4-H sports that you can imagine through Mason High School. Graduated in 1994. Then went to A&M on a scholarship and got an undergraduate degree and a master's degree from there. And then I've spent the last 28 years in business and leadership roles and also some entrepreneurial roles. Specific to Mason County, my civic leadership, president, Mason County Farm Bureau. I served on the Mason ISD board as a trustee. I have been very, very active in the Stock Show Association and the 4-H as well. Also served on the appraisal district board for many years. So, appreciate all of those experiences and life lessons that come with that. And I think that's what's led me to want to be in this judge's role. I think it is time for me to step up and take those experiences and my passion for Mason County to help lead our county, along with many other elected officials and team members. It's also led me to the place where I'm at. Am I in the wrong spot? To what do I want? What do I feel is important for Mason County? And for me in this leadership role and what I can bring to it. So the first is budget and fiscal responsibility, very transparent with integrity. The budget, because that's one of the main roles of the county judge. Also to be a steward, if you will, of our legacy, our people, our assets, our natural resources, so that they can continue and that they can be taken care of, so that we leave this place better for our grandkids. It's way too early for me to be thinking about grandkids, or maybe even your next generation. I also think that one of the most important things is emergency preparedness and management. I'm changing that narrative just a little bit to preparedness, because I would like for us to be more proactive in our approach for emergencies and taking care of our own. And then finally, just visionary leadership. I think it is so important that we see opportunities or we see risk that are coming to Mason County, and we need strong leadership to step out and see that and recognize that, whether it's good or bad, and then bring it back to us. So that's my plan. That's my vision for all of us moving forward. I am excited to be here. I'm excited to continue to listen and to learn. I don't know it all. I promise you that right now. But I have enjoyed the process so far, and I'm looking forward to having more conversations tonight. Thank you.
Can they hear me up here? All right. My name is Dave Underwood. I'm the current county commissioner in Precinct 4. My wife Kim's here tonight. We live on Lower Willow Creek Road. Tell everybody opposite the art store. So if you've been down there, that's where we live. We have two daughters, O'Brien, who's a senior at Texas Tech, and Bronwyn, who is a junior in high school. I've served in this position a little over 3 years now, and we do have a wonderful place here. We have challenges. I'll be the first to tell you that. All of you that are in here have seen those over the years. We try to be as transparent as we can and work hard to make this a better place to live every day. I know that our current court is very dedicated to Mason County, and I know I may be running for a certain precinct, but I think Fred would attest, we work in all precincts, so we have to work together as small as we are with our size, and that's just part of it. But I enjoy what I do. I love this job. I love the people of Mason County, and I certainly want to leave it better down the road than the way it was handed to us. And it was handed to us in a good way. But things change over time, and we have to make changes, and some of those aren't easy. And I don't think any of us like sudden changes. And I can tell you, county government moves slower than I would ever like it to move. Unfortunately, I'm one of those that, if I see something, I want to get it done today, and it just doesn't work like that in county government. Sometimes it takes time, it takes coordination, and there's lots of people involved and lots of other agencies. So I can tell you, the first few years of county commissioner, it's a learning process, and it takes some time in that transition, but I think as a team, we've had a great team. We work hard together. Our employees work hard. A lot of them are in here tonight, and I know they don't always hear the positive things. And so, but we do thank them for what they do, and proud to be in Mason County. Thank you.
My name's Garrett Allen. I graduated from Mason in 2011. I am 8th generation in my family to call Mason home. I have a son who will be 1 this month. He's generation number 9. I left Mason, went on to Angelo State, and as much as I loved Angelo, I knew when I got back to Mason that's where I needed to be, and I scurried home just as soon as I could get here. And there's a lot of things that make Mason special, and I knew as soon as I graduated that I wanted to be involved, whether it was a commissioner's position or a county judge. But I also knew it's kind of hard to ask people to vote for you right out of college. So I've been biding my time, and a couple people who I greatly respect mentioned it this year, and I thought maybe it's my time to step up and run. And there's a lot that makes Mason special, and there's a lot of things that we face that we struggle with. And right out of college, I went to work for the Road and Bridge Department and got to learn about that from inside the belly of the beast, and which is good because I know that county road discussion is a spicy one in small towns, and but I think there's crafty ways that we can improve on that. I've seen it firsthand, and I've seen how others have helped that. I think the challenge that faces all small towns is the topic of growth. All small towns have to grow, but all small towns are also terrified of growing. And I think you can take a 40-minute drive south of here and see what happens when you grow too fast, too much. And you can also drive a little west of here and see what happens when a town doesn't have the option to grow. And I feel like Mason's in a unique spot where we have to be nimble enough to let Mason grow, but we also have to be mindful of making sure it happens in a way that preserves what makes Mason special. And in my opinion, what makes Mason special is the people. That's why my other big thing that I worry about is emergency safety, emergency preparedness. Emergency management coordinator is a role that comes with judge, and through my role as president on the fire department, I've seen firsthand how that position can be a giant asset. It can also be in the way if not handled properly. I'm not saying Mason, Judge, we work other mutual aid. I'm not talking about you. So, because in my opinion, if we can't keep our people safe, it doesn't matter what we do in that courthouse. And years ago, being prepared for an emergency meant a flood or a fire. And nowadays, we always have to be prepared for someone in the clutches of a mental break that's going to come stumbling in, and it's a different ball game. We're not that sleepy little town. And so emergency management looks different nowadays. But that's one thing that I'm very sensitive to, and I'm very passionate about. The other thing is communication. I feel that you can learn something from 90% of the people that you talk to, as long as you keep an open mind and a good attitude. And being county judge, a lot of problems land at your feet. And I believe that if we all stay calm, speak in a civil manner, everybody can walk away and feel like their side of the argument has been heard. And I want a giant pathway of communication between the office of judge and the people in Mason, because we can't do this one at a time. We have to do this together. We're all in it together. And so I'm excited to be here. I thank the Republican Party for hosting us tonight, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. Thank y'all for being here.
First, I want to thank the Republican Party and the Republican women for hosting us tonight and letting the general public have a shot at us tonight and listen to what we have to say, and hopefully we say the right things. But I want to thank you all for coming and showing your interest in Mason County. I'm Fred Estes. I'm a Commissioner Precinct 2, and I am rerunning for re-election, and this time I do not have an opponent. But I still want Precinct 2 to step up and vote for me if they choose to, and I'd appreciate their votes. I also went through high school in Mason. I'm the 5th generation of Mason County. My grandfather, my dad's, his name was Roy Estes. He built a lot of the rock fences that you see out in Camp Air and out through the countryside. He put a lot of rock fences up. I like to go see those rock fences and just think about what he did for this community and for ranchers around. My dad passed in 2019. My mother's still alive. She's 93. And we keep her active she keeps my personal records for me. She was a tax preparer for Mason here in Mason. My brother bought her business out, and now he's a CPA here in Mason. I have 3 children. One lives here. He has Fly Gap Winery. Has 2 beautiful daughters. My granddaughter's here. I have a son in Kerrville. He coaches at Kerrville Tybee. He's married and has 4 children, 2 girls and 2 boys. And then I have a daughter in San Angelo. She works from home, and her husband's a deputy sheriff there in San Angelo. And they have 3 beautiful kids, 2 boys and a girl. So I have 9 grandkids. They keep me pretty busy. And that's the joy of my life. I'm very active in our church here, Church of Christ. I'm a song leader. I do present lessons there sometimes and teach Bible classes. I'm very active at the golf course here. I was. Jess Bearden is president there now, and I'm off the board, so it's his baby now. But I still like to see things like that in our community prosper and grow, and nice things for our community and nice things for people to do. The last little over 3 years we've been in office now. It's my first term. Going to be my second if I get more than 2 votes, I think. Anyway, I've learned a lot. I am a student of learning county government. Unfortunately, county government is regulated by state laws. We have statutes and Senate bills and House bills, and the more you read in those things and the more that's put on the county, I think we as commissioners and judges need to stay in contact with our senators and congressmen of the state. I'm learning that more now than I had when I started. But communicating at that level is very important for small communities because everything we do is regulated by the state. And I'm talking about everything from subdivisions. We created regulations, and Judge Bearden was in there, and then we carried it on and finalized the regulations for Mason County. And now those regulations might not mean anything because the state is changing the laws so fast. But we have to stay up with those things. But I ran the first time to be a servant for the community, for constituents in my precinct, and also for the entire county. And can't do it for the money because it's just not that much for the hours you put into it. I come from the private sector. I've been at Dr. Pepper for 47 years. We can make a decision there overnight. And then, like Dave said, county government, the business side of it moves so slow because there's so many things that you have to look at and make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's. But I appreciate you coming, and I hope we have a good meeting, and I look forward to answering some questions. Thank you.
It's coming through the north end or proposed through the north end along the San Saba River.
I went to a meeting a couple of weeks ago and learned more about that. And that is the largest power line in the world. And then they kind of said, except for maybe Mongolia. It's a 200-foot easement. So I think probably go out on a limb here. I'm going to say probably going to be a focus.
what the waters have done here even this past year. And so I think that that's something we all have to band together and really be very mindful of. You know, we've got to protect the beauty of our river. You know, Mason, that's one thing I've always said is Mason is the happy medium of, you know, we have hills but not too hilly, and places we're flat but not too flat. And you know, we've got a little a little touch of all of it, and we've got the most beautiful mixture of topography and countryside. And the last thing I want to see is a giant eyesore power line. And I think that's where we have to band together. Thank you.
Ken, I hear your question. I'm listening to the answers, and I'm kind of lost. I mentioned have a train of thought. Subdivisions. If we have a good subdivision regulation right now, but if the state takes that away from us, I'm just wondering where we would be going. What they're doing is right now the county has the authority to have oversight of these subdivisions and how they're managed and how they're constructed. But the state is wanting to bring another level into that and allow a third party to manage that instead of the counties. And if we let the third party manage it, then our authority is kind of put aside. And that's concerning to me. I live in an area, I live out on Hickory Grove Road, and prior to our regulations going into effect, we've had a subdivision come in there. And I see how it's developed and how it's not developed today. And it's bad side. Commissioner, I think that's one of the things that I'd like to see, that we have a little more oversight on our subdivision. Had some good subdivision things be approached by us, and I think they're doing it right. But in the future, if we lose our authority over the regulations, then I have a little concern for that. And also on the 765, I also went to those meetings, and that is concerning on that in the northern end because it runs through a piece of my precinct. And, my constituents out there are very worried that it might come through and we need to push it further north. With all the power we can muster to keep it from crossing the San Saba, I think 6 or 7 times. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm not running for county judge, but as commissioner, I think most of you are probably aware within the last year, we've got Albert Harrington. He's here tonight as our emergency management, I call you coordinator. I don't know if that's the right term, but that's pretty close. He's been in that role probably a month, maybe now, and gave his first report today. And eye-opening, I would say. We have to be prepared with what happened in Kerrville, obviously. Some of those are very close to people in Mason. I know when I think about that, my My nephew had 2 kids in his homeroom class that were lost in that flood from Dallas. But back to Albert, we have plans in place to work with neighboring counties. Some of those hadn't been updated. I think he told us today 1983 was the last time one of them was updated, and he's starting to go through all that stuff. And in the past, the county judge has taken that all on. And y'all know in Mason, everybody wears many hats. And with more requirements, Fred brought up some of that a while ago, some of those duties have to be spread out. And we do that. But we're fortunate to have good coordination with our local fire department, Brandon and Jody Webster out at Pontotoc and his fire department in terms of that and the fires. But I guess getting to see it firsthand, we had a big fire out in Art. Some of y'all saw that and what happened there. And it was amazing the response we had from Texas A&M and Forest Service, but also all the neighboring communities around us. So I think kind of a little bit back to what both the judge candidates said, communication is going to be key in that. I think the people of Mason County need to be informed of what's going on. We have a sheriff's app now that has been really great. If you have that, if you don't, I encourage you to get it. It really keeps you in the loop. Joe's done a good job on helping us get stuff out that we need out. But emergency preparedness, it's here. We're dealing with sirens now where they need to be, dead areas in the county, and we can also use those for other things. But Albert's working on that and doing a great job. So my 30 seconds are up. Read the question.
Well, I think so. I've been on the fire department for coming on 10 years now. I've been president for 3. And got on the fire department. When I got on, it was mainly a foot race to get on the truck and get to go fight fire. And I remember the first time I got to be incident command on the fire, and I understood at that point how much it's not just fighting fire. You know, we always put the wet stuff on the red stuff, and there's more to it when you're in charge of it, and you're having to handle other organizations. And I think the key part to being in this role is having those resources and keeping contact with, you know, whether it's in a situation of a fire, Texas Forest Service, you know, keeping contact with them, knowing where they're stationed at, and where, if we're going into a fire scene, where our county maintainer is going to be at, where's our equipment stationed at in a moment of need. Does Forest Service have equipment in Fredericksburg, or is it in Marble Falls right now? But then at the same time, knowing water rescue teams. That's not something we do, but I know Junction has some great rescue teams over there, keeping in contact with people who know how to do that, because I love our fire department to death. I don't want to send them in there swimming after somebody and they're not trained. So let's keep open relationship with those people that we need. And there's just such a vast array of what emergency response looks like nowadays. You know, like I said earlier, it's not just fire. It's not just a flood. And we are so fortunate to have Albert Harrington. You know, I got to know him through the fire department. And there's no one who could do that job as thorough and handle what he has to handle as he does. And he's a giant asset to the people of Mason, and he's someone I look forward to hopefully working with in this role. But it's a matter of balancing that with Albert and keeping those lines of communication open with the resources that we have in those situations, and just being mindful of where are our dead spots, Albert gave his report this morning, who can't hear the sirens? I thought we all could. Turns out we all can't. And so it's things like that, and identifying the stuff that you don't expect to see coming, such as, you know, a blind spot with the sirens. So getting the card right there, but I think keeping communication open with the resources you have is the main thing. Thank you.
I personally take emergency management seriously. me, it all starts with training. And I had the opportunity to sit in on Art Fire and saw exactly how Forest Service and TDM operate. And it was very intriguing and very educational for me to see how everything was handled with the judge sitting there the entire time, knowing where the resources were, who are the resources, what are they doing, but those things are important. I think it's important that we be proactive as court, and I feel like we have been. We created an emergency management coordinator position, paid position for our county, and I think it's a great resource for us to have, so they can, so he can coordinate with each of our resources, our fire department, our sheriff's office, our EMS, and making sure everyone is on the same page and bringing other resources in when we need them and working with the judge firsthand. And naturally, the final call will come from the judge on certain things, and they need to be communicating there. But it all starts with the dispatcher. I did that for 17 years, and I think, Albert, I think you're going to have to get with him on getting up to speed on how to dispatch these things. I've listened to dispatch over a radio, and sometimes they say things that I would never have said when I was dispatching, but it takes training. But we have a lot of training to do, a lot of resource training with each of our departments, and I know Albert's going to do a great job in doing that. But our community is important. We're not the same world we were 20 years ago, and emergency management is a very important thing for our county.
Well, I'll start by saying that I believe our people are our most important resource, and that I personally believe that we should spend our assets and our resources to protect them at all costs. But I also said a while ago in my introduction that I think we have to change the narrative on emergency management to preparedness. We have to train, we have to implement processes, not just type it and put it in a binder on a shelf. We've got to practice it. We've got to communicate with all of our departments, but even more with our partners. The city, they're going to be right there with us. What if we have to mass people out of here? We're going to use the school buses. We need to know who we're calling, where the keys are, and who's driving those school buses. So I believe it's bigger, and it takes all of us, not just one of us, but all of us working together to make sure that we are prepared, that we have plans and processes in place, that we have professionals that are paying attention to everything that we do. I can tell you in the last 3 years, I have actually been in the middle of 2 active shooter situations. We've talked a lot about floods and fires and tornadoes. Those are natural disasters. But I think our biggest threat comes from humans. And I think we have to be prepared for that. Mason is no longer the silent little town. During that active shooter, I was in the barn, in a show barn, and they had us locked down, and my phone starts going off. And it's my show family saying that they are hiding in the nose of our trailer because there's a gentleman with a gun in the parking lot. Are we prepared? Are we ready for that here? You may not know it, but not too long ago, there was an incident at the courthouse. Were we prepared? Had we trained? Do we know where that 911 call panic button is going? It is so important that we train, that we communicate, that we work with all of our entities so that we are prepared. Then if it happens and when it happens, we know what to do. We don't panic, we pivot. And I think our people deserve that. And I'm getting
I think, like I said earlier, I'm a firm believer you can learn something from 90% of the people you deal with. It's a matter of keeping calm, keeping an open mind. And that's where, and you're going to deal with some people that come in that just want to be mad. And if you want to come scream at me, go for it. I'm not going to scream back. There's no point in escalating an already heated situation. But communication's key for me. But if you have if you have a problem, I want you to bring it to me and let's talk about it. But I also need you to be willing to hear an answer, even if it's not what you want to hear, which sometimes is the tricky part for all of us. But the main thing about it all is I believe we can all walk away from a conversation and feel heard as long as we all de-escalate and bring it down and let's talk on a civil level. I have a lot of friends who, whether it's politically or whatever, that we don't see eye to eye. But the thing is, we can still have a loving conversation because when it all comes down to the end, we're in it together on the same team here in Mason. And I hope that when you come in fired up to tell me something, I hope to learn something from you. I hope that we can calm it down so you can explain it, and I hope it's a massive aha moment for me. But it's a matter of bringing it down. Let's discuss it. And I went to college to be an elementary teacher. I promise. We did a lot of training in how to stop a tantrum. And I hope we don't have to rely on that, but I'm glad I've got that bullet in the holster because that may be what we're face to face with when someone's wanting to throw a tantrum. But it's just, like I said, it's a matter of communication. I'm not going to get mad back at you. If you want to be mad, be mad. But I really want to talk to you, so let's calm down and let's have a discussion like adults. Thank you.
Can you read that question one more time? I'm sorry. Communicate, agree to disagree, but depending on the situation, we've had some of those. Had some pretty fired up. We need to make sure the court that we abide by the law. We do things that we're allowed to do in the court. There are some things that we can't do. The county can't pass ordinances, and that's a law. The county passes ordinances. Municipality can. It's a little bit different thing that the state regulates for counties to do. But knowing the situation and listening is a key part. They may be fired up and screaming at you, but you've got to hear what they're saying. Listen, because we're not always right. I'm not always right. If somebody is fired up about something and they're firm on it, and they can convince me that they're right, and I may look at something they're saying through them being fired up. Maybe there's something I can do to appease them, but a lot of instances you can't appease them. But you've got to agree to disagree with them. Keep things on a level keel, not by screaming back at them. I agree with you. That is no way you have to think. Try to serve as a commissioner very humbly. Because it's a job of service. I got to look at it that way. And I can't, and I thank God that He's put that on my heart to serve our community, to be part of it, and try to keep Mason what it is. And if it grows, help it grow in the right way.
I think for me, it starts on day one. Leadership on day one is just every time you can express and show transparency, integrity, communication, it starts to build that foundation, that layer of trust. And it's my goal, honestly, 20 years as the judge that's going to be stepping away, to have that type of relationship with the community of Mason, with our county, so that when somebody does get fired up about something, number one, they know that they can come to the office and they can have a discussion. Number two, know that I will be open to listening to them and hearing them and learning from them. And then from there, this is something that I learned when I was early in my career. It was one of my great mentors in my sales profession. And he says, people are going to come to you with issues that are truly your issues that you can't solve. What you do is you listen, you ask questions, you clarify, you see if there's a solution. If there's not a solution, then you show action. And I'm like, well, I don't know what a solution is. He said, no, action is that you go back and explain to them all the steps that you've done and still can't provide what they want. He says, and it'll make most reasonable people understand that you heard them. You heard their concern, you heard their complaint, and you did everything you can. He says, because you're not always going to make people happy. And that made total sense to me. It really did. So again, I just go back from day one. It's going to be about integrity. And the great thing is that we have a team of fabulous commissioners, department managers. And about 6 months ago, I started going around to all the different departments and having those conversations and asking them the questions about what's good, what is bad, what are the questions that you get. I have 1 minute, I've got to be fast. And what I did see is that every one of them was incredibly passionate about their job and actually serving the people of Mason County. And I wish the community could see that on a regular basis, because I could see it and I could feel it from all of them. So again, just integrity and transparency and having those one-on-one conversations. Thank you.
No, I think two things. Most of the heated calls I've got have dealt with county roads. Just being transparent and honest. Face to face is the best way I've learned to deal with that. Go out to them, look at it. Fred and I've driven lots of miles. I know he's the only one up here. Reggie's sitting out there, and I know Reggie has too. 9 times out of 10, maybe 10 times out of 10, we agree with who's upset. We just don't have the resources in terms of financial resources to fix the problem. Reggie and I have brought in people to try to fix the problem, and we know those numbers, they're high. Some of them up to $250,000 a mile to fix the problem. When you have a $700,000 budget, it doesn't go far. Chris McGee's been working hard on that through our floods, working with FEMA, TDM. We've all done that. And I'm going to stop there on county roads because I have something that may be more important. Most of us up here are on the current commissioner's court, I can speak for, can read the community. We know when somebody's upset, even though they may not say something. There's a lot of people in Mason that you just got to read them. That's what they mean. And I think a big thing about, or a big accomplishment I think we have with the county that we did with the city that some of you may not know, and Thane walked out a while ago, I think, or he sat down and I can't see him. But we now we're running two EMS crews. And we saw a lot of our good friends and citizens of Mason County really stressed out when one EMS was on a call and a call came in where they or a family member needed another one, and it's 30 miles down the road to get here. And so, I don't know. Sometimes that upsetness we can read. If you're on city commission, you could read it. And I'm proud to work with them. I'm proud for the citizens that attended our EMS meeting. I think that was at the school cafeteria one day, just listening to them. But Fred put a lot of time into that. Judge Harden put a lot of time into that. Reggie's experience being on that put a lot of time into that. You know, Buddy and I listened to a lot of people talk about it. And I think that was a priority our last budget session, is to get that accomplished. And I'm proud with the city we were able to do that.
A lot of people don't know we have 2 crews running, but Thane told us today it's up and running. It took a month of training to get it all going, but proud that's in place now. So.
I wonder Fred.
First this time?
You're up.
All right.
If the county faced a sudden revenue shortfall, what steps would you take first?
County faced sudden revenue shortfall, which is possibility with the new tax rates. It's hard to say, but we'd have to. If you have a shortfall, that means you're going to have cuts, and where are you going to make them? We would have to bring in all our departments and department heads and ask for help, because we would have to prioritize, and to prioritize a budget in each department, because each department's going to think their department, they can't have any cuts. But everybody's going to have to step up to the plate and work together. And I think the community will be the loser on the services, because services will definitely be shortened. We were talking about having 2 EMS outs. Right now, we can do that with the city's help. But if we have a shortfall, that, not saying it will be, but it possibly could be the first thing to go, going back to what we were doing, the 1 EMS out. I hope that never happens, because I know as a dispatcher, it is very trying, not only on the dispatcher, but on the EMS people, and definitely on those that are needing services right now. It's a life and death matter. And unfortunately, I think we've lost some lives due to having 1 out. And it's a sad thing. I'm not saying that they would have made it, but we wanted to give them the opportunity to make it. But yeah, it would be a very trying, prayerful time if we had a shortfall.
Yes. I think that's a really good question, because honestly, I think it probably is at the foundation of a lot of thoughts that we have, and a lot of conversations, because the budget is so important, and it's our lifeline, right? So I was actually visiting with a previous county judge. He came to the house and we sat down for several hours, and I was talking to him about the budget, because trust me, I've spent a lot of time climbing in and out of this thing because I enjoy numbers. And one of the things he said to me really resonated, because we were talking about, a deficit budget, but not deficit spending and those kind of things. And he says, let me put it to you in this perspective. He says, your net profit is the quality of life that you provide for the citizens of Mason County. And that resonated with me. So when we talk about having a financial crisis, to me, that's what that means, is we're taking it away, some of that quality of life. And from there, I think you just have to get creative. I've been on many, many budget planning sessions and meetings, a lot of nonprofit, some for-profit. And sometimes you just have to get really, really creative. And one of the ideas that I've been kind of bouncing around, mainly because it's unfunded, unmandated by the state, but Mason is taking care of Mason, we're taking care of our people, is the food and nutrition program. I think we should consider taking it to a nonprofit status, so that then we could have opportunities for additional grants, for additional fundraisings, because the way it is right now, we're very, very limited in that. And I think that's an opportunity to allow that program to grow and get better and get more financially stable, instead of just the county trying to find money for it. And I visited with Belinda a couple of different times on it, and I think there's true potential there. And I've worked with lots of nonprofits, and I think that's an option that could really be good. My 1 minute. So I think number one, we have to we call it getting really skinny. We have to really look where we're making our expenditures, and we have to prioritize. But then I also think we have to get really creative and see opportunities. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I can say your elected officials in Mason County are very conservative. Probably like many of you sitting out there. It is rare for one of them to be over budget. They usually come in way under budget. Sometimes, though, that's not always the best thing, but that's how they're raised. That's how they were brought up, and that's what they're used to. I know how we've handled the budget the last 3 years. Each elected official brings their budget to the Commissioners Court. We review it and visit with them about it. But I don't think we have one elected official that hasn't tried to see the big picture. Sometimes that's hard when you're an elected official and you're over a certain department, you're focused on yours. Luckily, the elected officials in Mason County, and I know Chris McGee's here in the Road and Bridge, they really look at the big picture. So I think everybody would work together. Chelsea's here. I don't see any group that really doesn't work with each other. We try to work together. We try to do what's best for all the citizens of Mason County. It's very possible to have a budget shortfall. Even though we see new houses and we see growth, we don't have the growth our neighbors to the east do. And so it's very tough when we're setting a tax rate because it's affecting the same people. It would be real easy instead of having 3,000 homes in Mason County, which I was shocked by the other day at the appraisal board meeting. If we had 6,000, maybe we could cut them in half, but then you'd need more services. So there's a lot of discussion about that, but I know with the services that the county needs, based on what I've seen from the elected officials in their departments, it makes it tough at budget time every year. We probably spend a full month. I think Judge Harden has us meeting quite a bit for a couple months, and it comes right down to the wire to try to get it all worked in. So it's not that it's easy now. A budget deficit would make it even tougher, and I think we'd have to, work even more together with the city and the school and whatever other resources we had, whether it be the COG or TDM or FEMA. So that's a tough one, and it's very possible. So sorry about that. It's kind of a blah answer, but.
Well, you want to read it since you walked up there? No, I'm just... No, that's a difficult one, but I think before you start trying to trim the fat everywhere and live as lean as you can, I think part of Mason, you have to rely on your people. And when I went to auctioneer school in 2009, I never expected that every auction I would do would be a fundraiser. And Mason I have sold more $1,000 cakes than many auctioneers around. And I'm not saying we lean on the community for funding, but I've seen how, look at Road and Bridge. When we've had a massive weather event, how many people brought their equipment out in bladed county roads with not even looking to be paid. Some of them did, but a lot of them not even looking to be paid. And there's going to be people that are dedicated enough to this community that are willing to help without the pat on their back. And, hey, you live down that county road, do you mind working on it if it's bad? And we are going to have to look at cuts and stuff, but we're living in the most giving community I have ever seen. And I think it's going to surprise you how much people come together in those situations. And another thing is getting crafty with your money. I've been dealing with some Road and Bridge administrator who's kind of working with dealerships and things, and he's really turned their Road and Bridge department around by they no longer live 100% off of budget money and how they're handling it, and they've really done amazing things. And I think it's an opportunity that Mason would just do so well with. But it's a matter of getting crafty with the money you have and the resources you have. And I'll admit, Mason's biggest resource is the giving, loving nature of Mason. And before you go to firing people, there's some of them that are going to be willing to, hey, tell them, we're in a bad spot here. Are you willing to work for this? And can you still help out? And there's people that are going to be happy to do so, because I've seen it. We talked about that art fire. We had more help out there than we knew what to do with, and water bottles running out the ears. Like, Mason gives like no other. And it's in those times of need when we work together the best. And I think it's a giant asset for us. Thank you.
Your turn? Or?
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's my turn. Yes.
How do you work with law enforcement and first responders while respecting their expertise and maintaining civilian oversight?
I think that's a fantastic question, because teamwork makes the dream work. And I believe that. I think we have some fantastic departments with the sheriff's department. I think we have fantastic volunteer fire department. I think our emergency services is fantastic. I think Albert is building us a program that's going to be fantastic. And I think, honestly, the key is just communication, a heart for service, and check your egos at the door, and let's meet on a regular basis and have conversations. And as we hear things and as we see things, bring it forward so that we can talk about them. And I also think, a lot of that relies on the community as a whole. If you see something, say something so that we can start seeing it. I'll never forget, Buster was still the sheriff, and I was going into the courthouse to do something, and a random guy was sitting on the stone steps there on the north side, and he said, hi, and I said, hi, and he says, I got to ask you a question, and I'm like, okay, what? He says, y'all have a good clinic here in Mason? And I'm like, like emergency clinic? And he goes, yeah. And it was really odd. And I said, oh, of course, we have the clinic up on the hill, and, we have the fire department over here, and our sheriff department's over here. And just really hit me real funny. So I just kind of walked off real quick, walked through the courthouse, straight into Buster's office. And I said, hey, I just had this conversation out here on the street, and it's weird. So he actually said, okay, where's the guy? And by then he had made it all the way around to the newspaper office. And Buster said, I'll be right back. And he went over and, engaged and had that conversation. But it was one of those gut feelings that you're thinking, oh my gosh, right? And so even to this day, I think, could we have been Uvalde? Could we have been something? But a citizen said something, and our law enforcement jumped on it like that. So I don't necessarily know that answers the question, but to me, it's about communication. It's about having the open door policy that you can go in and conversate with the sheriff's office. They have great resources that serve them as well, and we need to utilize those. We need to utilize them in training so that we are prepared when things happen. And as we continue to grow with our fire department, which I think is fantastic, and appreciate the benefactors that have made that happen, I think we have great resources. I have 30 seconds. When I went and spent the day with the fire department, number one, that gear is heavy and it is hot, and I felt like Darth Vader. But one of the things that they shared with me is that some of their radios don't work in our part of the county. We need to fix that. That is a community problem. That is not a fire department problem. And I think part of that is knowing there's an issue, communicating it, and then getting a plan that we solve it together. Thank you.
I'm going to kind of speak from a county commissioner perspective on this. I think, we've elected a sheriff, and we try to let him run his department. He faces challenges, though, that he brought to us. And I think one of the biggest ones we're going to face going forward is salaries. And I bring that up, I pulled it up on my phone here, but Assistant Jail Administrator, Gillespie County, with a starting pay of $91,298.
we train a lot of people and we get them a lot of certifications. And if we're close, they stay. But $45,000 or $40,000 difference in pay is tough when they look at their retirement. And I think it's a challenge for our elected officials like the sheriff's office. I think it's a challenge for Thane with EMS, keeping the great people we have. And we have a lot that drive in from McCullough County or Gillespie County. They're working double shifts. They're working there, working here. But it's a challenge for them to recruit people with those salaries out there. You know, I'm looking at Chelsea over here and I'm thinking, you know, it's tough for her. They run elections out of her office. A lot of counties have an elections administrator. I think in the neighboring county, the elections administrator lives in Mason County. When we talk fire department, thankful, that's all I can say. We have volunteers. If we didn't, that'd be another tax burden. We're required to have a fire department in Mason County, and we're lucky we have volunteers that do that. But I think it is a challenge for those elected officials. I mean, we don't hire who works for the sheriff's department. Sometimes everybody thinks the commissioner's court does. The sheriff hires who he wants in that position. Chelsea hires the people under her. And it's tough when their budget restrains them from recruiting and then retaining after they get them trained. It's tough. But a lot of our neighboring counties, those salaries are extremely high. They are, and it's a challenge for those elected officials in those emergency departments you just mentioned. And that's why we do those budget workshops where they sit down and go over that, because that communication piece, both of these have mentioned, is key in that. We may not know. I didn't know that was it until Joe told me, and I pulled it up, and it's $91,000, whatever I said, starting pay. It is very tough to recruit. It is very tough to retain with that competition. So that's going to be a challenge going forward, I think, for the county.
Can I get you to read the question again?
How do you work with law enforcement and first responders while respecting their expertise and maintaining civilian oversight?
I think the main thing in that situation is make no assumption about how you're needed. These people are highly trained, and I've worked with all of them on major accidents and fires and things like that, and stuff that it'll be with me from now on, things I've had to see in those situations. But we are so fortunate that the people we have in those positions don't ever show up and ask, don't ever show up and think you know what needs to be done. If you're at a fire, walk up to that incident command and say, where do you need me and how do you need me? If you're on a wreck, you're not going to do anything. As a judge, I'll go work traffic control and stand back there. Let the professionals be the professionals because they're highly trained, and Mason has some of the best. Through our EMS with Thane and Tracy and Doreen and all those people, we have people on that box that Mason does not deserve. I mean, for the pay that we have, but they love this community, and we are so fortunate to have them. Through the fire department, whenever the talk of subdivisions came up, and, we had a meeting there talking about what happens, what does this look like if they decide to go to a paid department because of these subdivisions. And so we've got 36 on the roster currently, and 9 of us went through the fire academy. You don't have a lot of volunteer firefighters that are trained to make entry on burning buildings and handle those hazardous scenes and have an understanding of it, even what to do on scenes like that. How many tanker trucks come through here with who knows what. When it turns over and it's running out, we're very fortunate that even as a volunteer fire department, we know how to handle it and who to call and what are those steps. And so the main thing in that situation as dealing with first responders is let them do what they're trained to do and ask them where you're needed and how you can help. And from that point, it's making sure that you are working between them and the civilians. And thankfully, Mason, going back to that art fire, we didn't have a bunch of people wanting to show up and be the hero. They all showed up at the fire station, unloaded pallets of water. They didn't want to be out there in the middle of it, and I respect that. Some of them did. Some of them brought their bulldozers out, and they took off. But show up, go to incident command and say, how am I needed, and go from there. But that's the best way to handle working. Let them do what they do best.
I agree with everyone, but I agree with Garrett on letting the professionals do their job, staying out of their way. If you show up, ask if you're needed. If not, just step out of the way. Let them do their job. I've been on accident scenes. I've been on fires, and I participated in helping unload the water. I also did traffic control on a very bad accident. Had to walk about half a mile and then got on a motorcycle and drove the other half a mile because an off-duty police officer showed up and let me ride his bike up to where I had to direct traffic from. But we're very fortunate here with the resources we have with the volunteer fire department, our sheriff's department, and our EMS. They do a tremendous job. I've watched EMS do their job in my mother's house, and I honestly give them credit a couple of times for saving her life, and their quick response and their professionalism and their knowledge of how they needed to be how they treat their patients. Just listen and stay out of the way and let the professionals be professionals. And as a county commissioner, if they ask for resources, try to find a way to get them those resources, whether it's resources for finances, for training or whatever, and encouraging them to do the training so that they can maintain the professionalism that they have and they can learn. Because I know even Thane, and he's a paramedic, but he tells me all the time that he learns something new all the time. So we need to encourage them to continue training, and if there's a need that we can help, volunteer our help to them, but just do what they asked us to do. And as far as maintaining the control for the community, I know as far as spectators being around the scene, sometimes you have to be kind of encouraging and tell them they need to just step back and let the people do their job.
This will be the last question that our committee came up with, and then we'll have two from the audience. So just so we can go over it. Are you for or against the construction of a new jail?
That's a good question. So, I think we write a check, Mason County does, for, correct me if I'm wrong, Fred, probably $5,000 a month to neighboring or more, to house prisoners. I don't know if I was fortunate or unfortunate to serve on some committees from the court, one over in Bell County, and saw it was nearly all judges and Dave Underwood on there. They dealt with a lot of headaches with their jails and lawsuits that I had never really thought about that part of it. It's not something we've got to the point of researching. Do we need a jail? Yes, we need a jail, a new jail. What size of jail? I'd have to rely on a lot of data and a lot of public input on that. And when I say public input, a lot of it from our sheriff's department, what works, what doesn't work. I'd want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly from communities our size that have jails. The ability to staff that jail if we build a bigger one. The cost of affordable living in our community for those people that would work in that jail, possibly. There's going to be a lot of factors go into that. And when I had my top 5 priority, that's probably one of the things that needs to be considered. Kind of goes back to that first question you asked. I can't remember it exactly, but water's on there and now jail's on there along with some of these things other guys think. And that's something we've discussed. We've discussed it more than once, a jail. You know, we're lucky Joe has looked at what grants are out there. It's amazing how many grant dollars we got. We had our auditor there today, and in 2024, a little over $1 million in grants is what the county got in that most people never think of. And that was over about 5 departments. I may be wrong, 5 or 6. About 5 departments received, you know, a lot of money. So we're gonna, if we go that route, and that's the route the Commissioner's Court chooses to go and the people of Mason County, we're gonna have to rely on some funding and grant opportunities to help pay for that. Y'all know the cost of construction it's outrageous. And to get it in Mason County, it's even more. I know we've visited with numerous vendors at different conferences that just specialize in the construction of jails. And so I'm not against it, but I'd want all the information and data. It hadn't gotten to that point of discussion of where I can make a decision, I don't think yet. But I'm aware we need one. We had things freeze over there, according to Leslie and Joe, at our last freeze. So we did pass our last inspection, I believe. So Joe told us. But thank you.
So, like Mr. Underwood said, it's something I would want to know all the ins and outs of, but I brought this up with a friend of mine, and he's a ranger that works across a lot of the state, and he said he was talking about how jails are typically built in 36, 48, 96, kind of that configuration. And he said, had a person call me and said, we're building a new jail in Rankin, and he said it was 48, it would hold 48 people, and you look at what we're paying other communities to house our prisoners, and he said that guy called me and he said, I need inmates. And he said, I told him, I'm not driving back and forth from Rankin to Laredo when I need something, so we'll bring them to you. And he said, and I told him that was fine. He said, in one phone call, I filled him up with 48 inmates at $50 to $90 a day is what we're paying now, I believe, but depending where they're at. And so on one hand, if you can make that phone call and have the people in there, it's somewhat self-sufficient once you pay it off. But then at the same time, it's a headache of you have to staff it and you have to pay those people that are working there. And before all of it, you got to build it, and that's the big scary thing right now is the cost of building. And so, is it something promising? Yes, but there's a lot of unknowns at this time, and so it's something I would have to investigate. But I mean, I think if we can make money off of others doing it by having one and not be paying others to take care of our inmates, and I believe it's something worth looking into. But at this point, it's hard for me to say yes or no.
I'm with Commissioner Underwood. Do we need a jail? We definitely do, in my opinion. There's a lot of things that our jail doesn't have that we did pass the jail inspection for another year, but how many years down the road is our jail going to continue to pass on grandfather clauses? Pretty soon, I think our jail's going to be a historical museum. But I've worked at that jail for 17 years. The standards in that building are not up to snuff. It's very poor working conditions in that building, if you can imagine. We have it as nice as I think we can have it without remodeling the entire thing, and then you're looking at a couple $1 million just to remodel an old rock structure. But I can tell you, inmates that come there, they do not have television. They do not have radio. They get to read books. And out of county prisoners that come into our facility, they don't want to come back. So we have a real jail right now in Mason County. But so the way our jail operates right now is we have 5 beds in our facility.
Used to, we could house 10, maybe 20 years ago, because each cell had 2 bunks in it. But the state doesn't let our little jail do that anymore, so we can house 5 inmates. But we max it out with 3, because we always want 2 beds open in case we have an arrest made at night. So if we have 3 inmates in there, everybody that's arrested locally will be shipped either to McCullough or Gillespie County, and then the county is paying the bill on that inmate as long as they're institutionalized over there. We have, just for instance, we have 1 inmate currently that has been sentenced. He's been in McCullough County. They can't find a bed for him in a prison, but he's been incarcerated in McCullough County under our law here. He's been over there for about 2.5 years. So we're paying for his food every day and his bed every day, and it runs up. We have to be creative. Let's just talk about if we build a jail, we have to be creative, because there's ways that you can make that jail self-sufficient. If you build a 48-bed deal, you can split it down in half and either have it for white-collar crime for federal, because federal crimes they're needed badly, and they pay a premium price for those beds. So we can be creative and maybe make the jail self-sufficient.
So I went to the jail. It was my first time to ever go in there, and I can just tell you the working conditions in there are horrid. Literally, the dispatcher sits there with her 4 or 5 computers, but under the desk at her feet is a spaghetti contraption of cords that are held together with electrical tape and zip wire or zip ties, and they run up and down and all over the walls. And the comment was made, we are 1 spark away from needing a new jail anyway. So I will reiterate, absolutely, we need a new jail. Then we went upstairs to where the prisoners were and literally pulled out of her pocket a skeleton key. A skeleton key. In the digital world, we rely on a skeleton key to keep those prisoners up there. I felt very unsafe and unsettled because of the standards that our county workers were working in, much less the prisoners that were up there. So do we need a new jail? 110%, absolutely yes. And we talk about liability, we've got one. It's sitting there. There is no doubt about it. So then from there, what happens? Okay, we all agree that we need a new one. And I think Commissioner Underwood said it the best, is we need data, we need numbers, we need to look at it. And then I think there's considerations to figure out, are we just trying to serve our purposes, or are we trying to build it big enough that it becomes an income stream for the county? And I haven't actually seen all of the numbers on paper, but just in conversation, annual net income, $750,000. Wouldn't that be fantastic to the community of Mason if we had $750,000? But, right, but in capital letters, it comes with problems, right? Can we staff it? The idea was maybe we make it just a women's prison, because that's needed too, because you can't have both, right? So there's lots of considerations. Oh my gosh, I'm already to a minute. Had a lot of conversations with district judges. There's some new legislation that could possibly quit allowing us to bond out people. So guess what? Our need just went through the roof, and now we don't have a jail and we don't have a place to send them because everybody else is facing that same problem and their jails are full too. Thank you.
Your turn.
I'll take it. I don't know. This is the guest question.
Please discuss the upcoming bond proposal for a new high school.
Oh, I have mixed emotions about it. I mean, nostalgia in a small town is great and poisonous at the same time. I don't know why we're discussing a potential new high school. I have, from my time in there through training with the fire department, I mean, I have not seen the lingering threat of what we currently have. Personally, I don't like the idea of it. I know that new is nice, and I know we've had to add on, but then at the same time, we managed to do away with all the old portable buildings and get everybody on a firm foundation. And so if we need it that bad, how were we able to get away from the portable buildings? And so unless there's something glaringly hazardous, I'm struggling with the need for a new high school. And it's going to take someone smarter than I to take me and show me why we need this, or is it just someone that's wanting that to be the feather in their hat before they get out that's involved with the school? I don't know what the push is, but somebody's going to have to show it to me, because I think I love what we have, and I love our school district. And, you know, as going to school to be an educator, Mason, it amazes me the amount of people that we draw to Mason who want to get their kids in school here. And so if it's that bad, I'm proud of our teachers for surviving in such a bad condition if we need a new one. But I don't think it's that bad. And so I struggle to be on board with the idea of a new high school.
I also have mixed emotions, but sometimes you have to put your emotions aside. And I did pay a visit to the school just to look around. I felt like when we redid the elementary school, we did a disjustice. I think we should have built a new elementary school. Our elementary school's older than our high school. I helped move into the high school 50 years ago. I was the first graduating class in 1976 out of the new high school. Only went there about 3 months, and then we graduated. I got to go to where the River of Life is now, all 4 years there, and our conditions there were, Judge Bearden can attest to it, but they weren't the greatest in the world. We didn't have air conditioning, but we did have steam heaters that we kept us warm in the winter. But do we look at today's cost? Because we were talking about jails. I know when I became a commissioner, a little over 3 years ago, a jail at that time was about $3.5 million. Today, that same jail is running around $14 million. So we're looking at a $35 million high school. And if in 3 years, if we wait 3 years down the road, what's that $35 million going to turn into? 50, 60? So we have to look at it in reality. And the high school is in a condition, after 50 years, it's worn out. We can spend a lot of money remodeling that same building, but would new be better? I think I have emotions about it. I don't like to see the school go away, but at the same time, we have some problems over there with that building.
Take it away. So my personal truths, I have two of them. First and foremost, I've been in that school. I have sat and sweated my tush off in that elementary gym that has no air conditioner and think, oh my God, these children play in here when it's 110 degrees outside. Y'all should go try it. I have been over in the elementary and when they rebuilt the elementary over the top of an old boiler room. That boiler room is still there. Over in the high school, when the roof collapsed, they didn't fix it. They built another roof on top of it. So my first truth, our buildings are in terrible condition. They are. There is no doubt about it. Second truth, number one, I believe that our children are our future and that we have to invest in them and we have to do what's right for them and provide for them. I guess I have three truths. If I did the math correctly, now I'm an Aggie and a blonde, so just know that I did it twice to make sure I was right. I think it's $12,000 net per tax-paying citizen in Mason, Texas. I think that's a tough nut to swallow. I think the sustainability of us being able to pay that is going to be difficult. There is no doubt about it. So those are my truths that I see about the situation. When it comes down to actually voting for that bond, I can tell you that today, if I had to do it right this second, I would vote in favor of it, because I do believe the children are our future, and that's cliche-ish. But my child won't even reap the benefits for it, but maybe my grandchildren will, because I've been in there and I've seen it. I respect the group that's trying to do that. I think the people that are analyzing that data and working through that plan are very smart and they're very mindful. Back to your point about building costs, it's not getting cheaper. It is not getting cheaper. So we can either make our money work for us over the next couple of generations or let it sit there and build some interest. In my 1 minute, man, are you sure? Okay, well, apparently long-winded, but those are my truths. It's going to be tough. Is it a need? Absolutely.
Well, I like this question. Being a school superintendent and have built schools, I have not been to a community meeting. I don't think they've had one. I've read some in the paper about it, but I have not been to a community meeting to show the needs assessment that we need this high school and why we need this high school. I agree with Fred and Shannon. I've been in that hot gym at junior high. I can't believe we built the gym, but probably didn't have the funding for it. I don't know if we built it with INS funds or M&O funds. I know we redid the track with M&O funds when I first moved here, and I thought, why didn't we do it the INS way? So I would have lots of questions. I would want to see on the last bond, I think there's some money left over after the last bond. Typically, your bond zeroes out. I'd have those questions. When you pay off something, it should be, you're going to have a little left over, but you're not going to have $2 million left over. So I have questions there that I haven't had answered. Do we need a new school? Yes. Do I want to do it halfway? No. If we're going to do it, I want to do it right. I don't want a gym with no air conditioning. I don't want a roof built over a roof. But I'm afraid that cost is way more than $35 million. That committee probably got together and figured, what can we do to improve the situation we have now? I wouldn't be surprised if it's over $60 million or $70 million if you really want to know the truth. And that's hard to swallow. Shannon said it. Garrett said it. It's hard to swallow. I think that's one thing that I'd want to sit down and, hey, talk to me about it, because I don't sit in that classroom I sat in 91 through 94 or whatever. I don't know. I hear what my kids say. Some days the air works, some days it doesn't. Some days the roof leaks, some days it doesn't. We all know that. There's some community members out here that are dead set on a new gym because every time her and I sit together at a basketball game, we both think we need a new gym. And she's making enchiladas for everybody tonight when the meeting's over. But that's a tough question. I think we really got to rely on that committee and the board and the superintendent to show us. I think people go in with an open mind, though. We need to hear and we need to see. And then, I'm sure they ran the numbers to see what they think the community can support, and that's where they came up with that number. So there's reasoning behind it. I just haven't had the opportunity to sit down with any of them, and I'm sure they'll have community meetings on that, and bond counsel and architects that'll lead that, and we can ask those questions. But we elected those people and we've trusted them, put them in office, and so we've just got to hear what they say, and that time I'd have to make the best decision I could. So thank you.
Me again?
Okay. Alcohol plays a large part in domestic violence, low school performance, etc. What are your plans to counteract this?
Boy, good thing the commissioners don't set laws and ordinances, doesn't it? you have to lean heavily on your resources. You have to have input before you can have output. I'd have to learn what our issues and what our problems are with alcoholism. How are they gaining access? I guess you're talking about minors on this question. If they're talking about minors, then we'd have to find out where they're getting the alcohol from. If you're talking about adults, you have to find out from your law enforcement where are the key issues, what are the problems. I don't see a high problem with alcohol or any other drugs in our community. I know we have those issues. There is some. We're fortunate we're not Menard, where the traffic of illicit drugs are constantly being flowed through going to the interstate. But we do have an offshoot. I've seen in the 17 years I spent in the jail, I've seen things come through Mason County that most people don't see. But we do have issues, and as long as I can't make laws or set ordinances, we have to depend on our law enforcement for the input, and then we would have to, as a court, provide those resources for our law enforcement. That's the only thing I can say on that.
Thank you. So I'm going to take the initiative and I'm going to broaden that. Last week, about 11:30 at night, I got a text of a picture of a young man that you could tell was under the influence. I don't know what, but under the influence. And it said, this is happening right now in McCullough County, and Mason is next if we don't get a handle on it. So I think first and foremost, recognize that there are issues, that we are not ignorant to the problem, that we do have problems in Mason, that we have to recognize that we are not this pristine Mecca place. We have to recognize it. And admit it. And I think that's the first step. I really don't know. But from there, utilize our resources, utilize what's available. I think encourage people to personally reach out to folks that they know that are having issues, to encourage them to go to our resources. I would also say encourage people to go to church. First and foremost, God has us, and he has a plan for us. And if you can do anything else, just encourage somebody to go to church, and then pray for them. I'm very blessed that I have never firsthand in my immediate family had those issues, but I've got friends that do suffer, and friends that suffer at the hands of people that have issues. And it is real. And I think provide support, provide opportunity, or at least know what the plan of attack is. If somebody were to walk into the judge's office and say, I have this problem, or this problem is happening in my home, what do you do? Be ready for it. And then again, go to church.
I'd agree with what everybody said so far. You got to use your resources that you have available. From a county standpoint, the county judge usually makes that first call or contact, or helps in the right direction, or their resources. It depends on the situation and the age. Shannon may have brought that up, or Fred, I think. If it's schools have a lot of resources, or service center, or whoever they can reach out to. They have that network. If you've kept up with the news, and I'm a news guy, so there's been a lot of young tragedies out in West Texas, not really related to drugs, but all of them have a lot of resources recently, and those resources are there. Hopefully the people of Mason County know that there are options and there are resources, and hopefully they'll take advantage. Keep your eyes open. A lot of us have friends that if you see something, you need to say something. So a lot of times it's just they need that support, and they may not say something to you, but you may have to be the one to say something to them. But resources. Thank you.
I think it's so important for one to rely on your sheriff's department. I mean, this question doesn't specify age, but you know, I love working with our deputies. I've been very impressed with who we have, and I admire the job that they've done. I think a lot is to be said relying on them. Secondly, let's start them young. I remember those things that we dealt with in high school, and shattered dreams, or some of them, the name escapes me, but you saw those firsthand stories of the parents explaining the loss of a child to a drunk driver. We've got scholarships for people that were in the Mindy Mankin, she was killed by a drunk driver. And I think it's important, start young. Let's start, I'm not gonna, it's not a big revelation, but a small town community, there's a general idea that 4, 5, 6 beers after work is kind of the mainstay. And, that's something you see, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's the atmosphere that a lot of kids grow up in. And they grew up, and those dads grew up in it with their parents, and so on and so forth. It's imperative that these kids know, here's what you're doing long term, even if you don't abuse it. And when you do abuse it, here's what you're looking at in the short term. Here's your life in prison and the guilt of whatever you did when you decided to get behind the wheel. And I know that those things that we did with the school, I've been out of school for, 15 years now. But I remember what was said, and I remember those impact statements, and I know it doesn't sound that long to y'all, but I remember those impact statements, and they left a lasting impression on me. And so, rely on your sheriff and educate them when they're young. We have to be mindful, and we're lucky. We're not on those travel corridors of drugs, but that's not to say that they're not here, because you're going to deal with that always. And it's something, work with your resources, work with the sheriff, and help our high school in any way possible to educate those kids on. I know it just, it sounds cool now. Just going to try it once. And there's a lot of people in prison who said the same thing. And so that's my spiel. Oh, you started it.
We actually have another question, and we're running ahead good on time. Y'all mind taking one more?
Sure. You want to do it?
All right. Do you support or oppose the proposed southern route of the electric transmission line?
I think we oppose that. We oppose that. Unless somebody else wants to, I think everybody's opposed.
All those opposed.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps us up for tonight, for this version, this candidate forum tonight here in Mason, hosted by the Mason County Republican Party and the Mason County Republican Women, and the purpose was to have the event tonight is the forum was the candidate forum for the candidates for county judge. That is an open seat for county judge. Garrett Allen and Shannon Grody Worrell are the two candidates. Also a part of the candidate forum tonight, the two county commissioners whose positions precinct 2 and 4 that are up, 1 and 2, pardon me, that are up this year. And so those two county commissioners for 2 and 4 are up this year, and so those two candidates had an opportunity to speak as well. But the purpose was the opportunity for those candidates for the forum, for county judge, the contested race. Early voting for the March 3rd primary election begins a week from today on February 16th, and will go through for 2 weeks prior to the March 3rd election date, and so it gets underway. So we appreciate everybody being here with us. A big crowd on hand here in Mason tonight at the Eckert Civic Center for this event, and a lot of interest in the race for county commissioner and for county judge. And in the two candidates again, Garrett Allen and Shannon Worrell, the primary candidates for tonight in that open seat for tonight. I remind you that coming up a week from tonight, we'll have another candidate forum here on KNEL TV and on KNEL 95.3 KNEL FM. And that one will be for the 3 contested races in McCullough County that are on the ballot in the election on March 3rd. That will be for the contested race for county clerk, for county commissioner for precinct 2, and also for the justice of the peace in McCullough County are contested races. We'll have the candidates at our candidate forum next Monday night. It'll be at 6 o'clock at the Heart of Texas Event Center. Hope you'll come out and be a part of it. You can come out and be there in person, take a look at all the folks, and for folks in the area. And also we'll have it live here on KNEL TV and on KNEL 95.3 KNEL FM coming up next Monday night. That's going to wrap it up for us tonight here from Mason at the Mason Eckert Civic Center for this candidate forum for the Mason County Judges Post, for the Republican primary with the two candidates for the position of Mason County Judge. As far as all of us here at KNEL, we invite you to be with us. Hope you'll join us tomorrow morning. I'll be back tomorrow morning with the KNEL News, and also we'll be there for the KNEL Morning program tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Look forward to it then. See you tomorrow back here on the radio on KNEL.